Good afternoon and welcome to a Canadian solution to 3D printing for jewelers presented by Creative CADworks. My name is Samantha and I'm the managing editor of Jewellery Business. So as a note to today's attendees, all of your mics are muted. So please post questions for our presenter in the Q&A forum because we'll be addressing them at the end of the presentation. If you have any technical issues as you get started, you can use the chat feature, let us know, and we'll do our best to help you out. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Hemdeep Patel. Hemi is president and CEO of Creative CADworks, as well as a GIA graduate gemologist. He's also the former president of the Ontario chapter of the GIA, vice president of the Ontario chapter of the GIA Alumni Association. He has penned several CAD columns for Jewellery Business over the years, discussing a range of technical topics, including advanced gemological analysis and the adoption of 3D design and technologies. So with 12 years of experience with CAD and 3D printing and 6 years in 3D materials development, he and his brother were able to successfully transform their third generation gemstone and diamond business into a 3D tech company. In today's demo cast, Hemi will be discussing the evolution of 3D printing solutions for the jewelry industry and specifically Studio Cube 3D, Creative CADworks' latest addition to its resin 3D printer roster. And with that, I will hand things over to our presenter.
Hi, Samantha. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Thank you very much for that introduction. And I thank you for everyone for joining and taking 30 minutes out of your day today. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to provide you with some really interesting information that may serve useful as you start evolving your business and possibly adopting 3D printing into your current day-to-day. As you know, I was a part of the jewelry industry. I was third generation in the industry itself, GIA gemologist, GIA graduate gemologist, former VP of the Alumni Association, writer contributor, and then in 2009 we decided to do a complete transformation of our business. We really wanted to sort of see what 3D printing looked like, how to adopt it. And we started really putting all of our efforts and our resources and money into learning about 3D printing, the hardware in terms of materials, what exactly was driving this industry, what parts were important, where did the material technology and how everything was sort of pieced together in order to help people find solutions. And then while we were doing that as well, we also were identifying barriers to entry. And that was really our real main focus, is that we really wanted to understand where the key points of friction was happening and where it is that we can come in with our solution and start helping people adopt this technology. So when we started this journey, we really started to get to see how 3D technology was evolving and how it was actually changing the landscape for jewelers in particular. We're finding that there was now a massive growth in personalized jewelry, custom. We were finding that a lot of our clients were finding a direct correlation between the amount of custom that they were doing and the increase in the bottom lines and profit margins that they were witnessing as well. As well, they were noticing that they were able to do secondary and tertiary sales as well through their, by adopting 3D design in the store itself. And they were able to reestablish themselves as a place where you're now, you're designing and you're creating an art form. What we found, though, over that time period, and we still see it right now, is that there were significant barriers to entry. The early systems that were in place were really not for 3D printing. They were for other industries, and they were adopted into 3D printing for jewelers. And those systems that were for 3D printing for jewelry, those were quite expensive to maintain. They were quite expensive in terms of overhead costs, in terms of even getting your return on investment. We're finding that the ROI for a lot of small to medium scale jewelers, it just never made sense in terms of the amount of capital expenditure that you would have to put out, and then the return on the actual investment itself. So myself and my brother, who's a co-founder as well of Creative CADworks, we decided to sort of develop a strategy that ran parallel on two tracks. One was a 3D printer strategy, and then the other one was the material side, because both of them, at the end of the day, did go hand in hand in order to provide solutions for people. So we were looking at the 3D printer space, and at this time, there was starting to be a move towards a resin-based 3D printing, which allowed, effectively what you were doing is that you had a resin that was in the liquid form, you had a light source, and this light source would photo cure the material, the liquid material, into a solid. And so the wide range of applications for this was usually primarily in engineering, in model making, and they were starting to move into the jewelry industry. The big issue that they were having was the fact that the material had to be castable. And that is where we developed, on the second track, ResinWorks 3D. ResinWorks 3D is our photopolymer manufacturing company. It's based in Toronto, we own it, and we started to look around to see what were the needs of the industries that we wanted to get into, what solutions that we could find in terms of photopolymers that we can manufacture ourselves, and how can we address those needs and then drive those industries into digital 3D printing. When it comes to jewelry, jewelry is a very unique beast. It requires that you should be able to print this object on a printer, be able to take it out, handle it, and then take it directly to cast. And that functionality of your material was the key barrier for a vast majority of 3D printers and manufacturers and material manufacturers that are trying to bridge that gap. How do you get across that and provide a material that could be casted? So what we did in 2015 was that we started to develop we manufactured our first line of printer, the EasyCast HD Brown, and it really was our gateway into the industry. We were able to take that material to market, create a very strong following. We actually created a white label of that material. We went a private label, we did OEM, and then that allowed us to create even more material. So we created our Violet, which addressed another completely a very unique need for the jewelry industry, and that too again went private label. It had its own client base. It was now distributed globally, and we started to penetrate that market quite well. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of materials that had been manufactured to that point for jewelers, for the resin-based printers, were really acrylates. They were based on plastics. We felt that we needed to build a material that was based on a traditional wax material. So we introduced and we manufacture now the Series 200 and the Series 400. This took us roughly 20 months to formulate and really fine-tune the material. We were able to cast 4,000 individual pieces. We would print it over a wide range of printer platforms and cast it according to a number of different casting procedures in order to really find the optimal material that can be used by jewelers globally. The material is wax-based, as I said. It's manufactured in Canada, and it is built for jewelers. It was built by jewelers, and it is built for jewelers for a wide range of applications, from wire patterns to very, very intricate patterns, where now we were focusing on where we can actually build out files and print out files where you can cast it with very limited gates or screws, so that you can set up on a casting tree without needing any bicycle spokes or any complicated casting methods. Rather than you could just use a standard wax casting burnout and be successful with it. And then we also were starting to develop, and as we did this, we were starting to get a very strong following on Facebook. And we've got now a very strong user group in Facebook that use our material. We've got around 5,500 users globally that are active on our support group, providing a ton of information. And now we are also have 15 distributors globally. We're about to establish our West Coast distributor as well later on this week. And that was the driving force for this material. So that brings us to Studio Cube. This is really our gateway into the jewelry industry. We built the material for jewelers. We have had a ton of experience with 3D printing, and we really found an ideal solution for jewelers right across the world. And we were trying to address a lot of the barriers that people were facing. The first barrier was an easy to use platform that had a machine and a material set that could be easy to use. And that's this machine. It has the platform itself is extremely easy to use, and then it also can be used with our materials, which is wax-based, and it'll allow you to print out a wide range of pieces, jewelry pieces, and you'll be able to cast that. The second part of the barrier to entry was the maintenance. In this case, the maintenance that we're looking at is that there aren't any real moving parts. It comes with a 1-year warranty. Really, on some of the systems out there, you are required to actually replace the actual light engine or the projector. This one, you don't need to. You can actually get close to 5,000 build cycles with this projector set up. And the last, certainly the most important thing was the actual return on investment. You would be looking at getting the return on investment in about 350 pieces. So that would roughly mean one item that you would print a day. And if you were sending it out to get printed at $20 a pop, you would actually have paid off the cost of this printer. Now, when we developed this printer, we didn't go back and take an old platform and just reconfigure it to bring it up to speed. We actually rebuilt the actual platform itself. So what we did was we took the best of whatever was available. We took the best of the LCD platforms, we took the best of the DLP platforms, and we provided something that was uniquely for Studio Cube and our clients. We got a very large build platform, as you can see, in terms of the number of pieces that you can fit on a single printing cycle. We also made sure that the printer was even faster than whatever was available. So these are traditional time, timestamps of what the time scale that you're looking at printing out the number of files that you see there. The traditional platforms, you're looking at around 2.5 hours for these print cycles. On the Studio Cube, you would be down to 1.5. Now, another improvement that we've done was on the optics side. So there is these images that you see are actual images of what the traditional printers do output. So what you see on the top left-hand corner, that those cube patterns that you see are distinct of the type of surface that you get. So for jewelers, whatever you print or whatever the surface is exactly what you cast. And so what we went about to do is to improve the optics so that we can actually create better shapes, better features, so that when you print, you can cast an equally superior quality casting as well. So as you can see on the bottom, these are the exact same items that were printed on two separate platforms, one on a standard DLP LCD platform, and then the other one on the Studio Cube 3D. And then if we take a closer look on a typical claw that you would have on a ring, this is what you would get if you were to zoom in. You can see the distinct granulation or that cubing pattern on the images on the left. And you can see that same claw that was printed on the Studio Cube on the right, having a much more smoother finish. And that, again, results in a much more smoother finished casting that you get. And then if we were to take a closer look at the pave, this is where you can further highlight it, where the seats and the claws of the micro claw or the share claw that you see on the claws, there are distinct granulations or the cubing pattern that you would see. And if you were to compare it side by side with the Studio Cube, that patterning is not there anymore. That sort of summarizes the machine and the offering that we do have. We will be connecting this video. It can be watched, and further you can connect to our landing page to get more information. I'd be more than happy to sit down and set up a Zoom call at any other time if you have additional questions. But right now I'll throw it back to Samantha, and I'm sure there might be questions that we can probably address right now.
We do have a few questions ready to go. Thanks so much, MD. So we have one from Karen. That's our first question. It says, how much will the machine cost?
Well, right now we're still working with the manufacturer, but we know that it will be sub $5,000 US. So it won't be over 5,000 US at all.
The next question, what makes the Studio Cube stand out from other DLP printers in the same price range?
Well, the Studio Cube, the optics has changed. It has an updated optics, as I had showed you, where that cubing image or the patterning that you get on traditional DLP printers are now, that'll be eliminated. So you'll get a much more superior finish. Other than that, there really isn't a huge difference. The only other difference compared to other DLP platforms is that the build platform is a much more larger, so you'll get a lot more items on a single print cycle.
I guess the next question is somewhat related, but also totally different.
Yeah.
How does the Studio Cube differ from LCD printers on the market?
Well, the LCD printers, when they came onto the market, addressed a real massive need, and the need was to get a low-cost option available for all sorts of users. The problem with the LCD platform is that the LCD screen tends to burn out over a course of time. So we know, and we carry a number of LCD platforms, and we know that LCD screens do have a tendency of burning out between the time frame of about 3 till 6 months. I do have users who have been able to eke out roughly 8 to 10 months out of their platform, but that is usually based on the amount of usage that they're going through or the type of materials that they have. So that's the differentiating factor on the Studio Cube. You don't have any of those downtimes that you would eventually experience with an LCD platform.
And another from Taryn, when will the machine be available for purchase?
We are expecting to launch this in November itself.
Okay. So coming right up then.
Right up.
Another somewhat related question, which would be the right choice for a 3D printer for me as a jewelry designer?
I guess the question is twofold. The first part that you would have to answer is that if you are looking at adopting and sort of bringing it into the studio, then yes, I would try to find something based on your what your needs are and what your available resources are in terms of human resource. If you are an owner operator where you yourself are going to be managing HR and inventory and purchasing and sales, and now you want to add a 3D printer, then you want a printer that does not take you away from all of that. You want a standalone system that can be self-sufficient without a lot of downtime, and that would be the Studio Cube. If you're a setup that already has 3D printers, then we do have other printers that may address other needs that you might have within your setup that can better suit a gap within your needs, I guess.
And so for you personally, What were some of the challenges you faced during the transition from your former company to your current company with staff and finding the right people?
Yeah, it was. I think that was. I think the staffing. I think everything was a challenge because there was no. You couldn't just go to a school and sort of bring in staff that already were knowledgeable, and a lot of the things that we were doing on our side was at the developing or at the innovation side. So we really needed. We found people, and we're really happy with the people that we have that are open to idea, free thinkers that really want to be pushed in terms of being challenged and learning new technologies. We do have all of our staff. None of them have been none of them had any experience with 3D printing, but now they are quite self-sufficient on a 3D platform. One is now training all of our clients who are adopting, especially in the microfluidic or in the biomedical industry. He's doing all of our training amongst biomedical engineers. So really, it's a skill set that's worth having, but it isn't a skill set where it is difficult to sort of understand. It's quite easy to grasp and get a hold of.
And what kind of quality control is done to make sure all the resins are manufactured to the high standards, to a high standard?
Yeah, like for us, a lot of our clients are overseas clients in Europe and in Asia, and they expect that when they're ordering that it meets certain standards. So we usually during our manufacturing cycle, we have a fully set up print cycle where every manufactured lot has a batch lot that we are able to further analyze and further test and make sure that each batch that goes out has it meets our standards and our client standards for printing, for castability. And so that's what we've put in place for that.
And does your line of castable resins work with standard wax burnout? Work with the burnout schedule of an average casting house?
Yeah, in fact, that was one of the probably one of the big bridge that we had to sort of go over. It was to make sure that it was universal. It was easy for a casting house because we knew that the vast majority of our users were not casting in-house and they were handing it off to someone else. And so a lot of our testing protocols, we had to send our materials out to a lot of our distributors globally as well. And so amongst all the casting houses in the city, in Toronto itself, we were reaching out to our European casting houses, our Middle Eastern, into Asia. And so everyone had to be on board and sort of drive results that really made sense for us to move forward with this material.
Right.
Yeah.
And so regarding the 3D printing workflow, what is 3D printing workflow? What does it look like for a jeweler?
For jeweler, I think the workflow, it all depends on if you're doing your in-house design or if you're not. If you're doing in-house design, then it would just be an add-on to it. So you would design, you'd get approvals from your client, you'd print, and then you'd be able to print off of the Studio Cube. If you are someone that is trying to adopt or create a 3D digital workflow in their workspace, then the best option at this point would be, get someone to make your designs, get that file printed in-house, and then move it to a casting house to get it casted. So that at least introduces part of the workflow in-house. And then as you start feeling comfortable, you can then bring in a designer in-house to manage that part as the work increases. But this is actually a really cost-effective way to start using it because there isn't HR that you're involving. You're not putting a salary on the books. You're actually just getting a tool that can supplement that 3D part of it. And then once you have a proof of concept, then you can bring in the staffing required for creating the designs all in-house at that point.
Right. And how does it streamline custom design, custom work, and that sort of thing? How does the 3D printing in general kind of lend itself to that, which is clearly kind of blown up in
Yeah,
especially?
the one thing I've noticed is that if you are able to engage your client throughout, even if you don't have the CAD designer on hand, if you even have a 3D printer on hand, the act of even showing a client that, oh, I had this designed by my designer, and here it is in form. You can touch it, feel it, and you can try it on. All of those things become so tangible to client. I think sometimes we in the industry we live with the visors on, but even now when I talk to even friends or acquaintances and just explain what the workflow looks like, they are amazed that that can be done. And really the jewelry industry in general has sort of is in the lead in this. There isn't any other commercial enterprise that I know of that is a B2C enterprise where 3D printing is part of a over-the-counter discussion. A lot of it is done behind the scenes, like dentistry. A lot of it is done in the back room in the lab, and you know, the models or the devices that the patient eventually wears is presented to them, but they're never part of it. Whereas in jewelry, you can actually involve your client in it, and that's a tangible interaction that is very, very difficult for someone who's just, you know, leaping through a catalog or viewing it on a digital catalog. You can't sort of you know, duplicate that at all.
For sure, it's so hands-on in that, like, that really unique way. You really, like, I don't know, it really enhances the experience, I think.
It does, and I think it's very important now as the industry has now gone online. I think you know, everyone is trying to find a presence online, but effectively online also invites, you know, opening up tabs. You know, you'll be on your site and then you'll open up 3 other tabs to compare. And the only way that you can sort of stop that from happening is that you have to somehow engage them with a tangible thing that that allows them to understand that they're dealing with someone that is actually working with tangible objects, and that really does drive the business in a different direction.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, MD. We have hit the end of our half-hour allotment. We've reached the end of our demo cast. That's all the time we have for today. For any of the questions we didn't capture or any additional ones that our attendees that come to mind, we hope that we can get those answered to you by MD via email. Once again, thank you so much, Hemi, for joining us today, and thank you for Creative CADworks for the great presentation. A recording of the complete demo cast is going to be on our website in the demo cast section of jewellerybusiness.com. It'll be up there in about a week. So we will send it a link to all of the attendees to get them to come check it out. Thank you to everyone who attended. And before you go, please take a minute to, you know, fill out our feedback questionnaire. We really appreciate it for future events. And Hemi, have a great afternoon.
You too. Take care of yourself. Bye, Samantha.
Great to see you. Bye.